Okay, I'd like to open up the Public Works Committee meeting for Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. And the first item on the agenda today is to approve the October minutes. Do I have anybody who wants to say anything or just go ahead and approve it?
For a motion to approve, I guess.
Yeah, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, that's done then. So then we'll go and head on to open forum. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience here to talk, to bring up anything that's not on the agenda here. Otherwise, if it's something in the agenda, we'll talk about that coming up here. Anybody want open forum? Okay, well then we'll head on to number 3 on here, the tent policy discussions. I think maybe Tom, you can probably get us through that again.
So this is more just a follow-up. So we had talked about this in the previous month. We had a citizen, we had a concern about tent stakes being driven into the asphalt on Main Street. There was also a couple comments about the tents seem to be getting larger each year and they're starting to extend into the driving lanes.
Is that actually happening?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so. I haven't witnessed it myself per se, but
Mhm.
credible sources, I guess. And so I guess I'm looking to maybe limit how far out the tents can come. One other item you'll notice in there, I did reach out to our insurance carrier and get a comment on that. And probably the main thing that he wanted us to address is to make sure that whether it's on the road side or on the sidewalk side, that whoever puts up a tent allows a clear path for pedestrians so that they don't feel obligated to walk out into the driving surface. Or he said, close the street. So those are kind of a couple options we have for dealing with the size of the tents, I guess. If they want to have larger tents, maybe we have to require that the street is closed for that event.
Now, would that be on us or is that more of a public safety issue? Is that where the police department has to say, listen,
So what it would be is, I think, I'd have to talk to Jenny about that a little bit, but I think there'd probably be an administrative fine issued if the tents get too big. The police usually don't get involved in those kind of matters unless it's, a serious obstruction where, like say they block the road altogether.
well, I certainly don't think they should be out past where a car would park.
Right. And that was
That should
my
be the limit,
suggestion.
you're taking up a parking spot per se. So that's, whether you take up one width or two widths, I don't think we should be out into the street past those white lines.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
And I think most people probably get that. I think there's just one or two who are
Yes.
starting to push it.
Yep.
And so by us discussing it, hopefully that just makes them a little more aware.
Yep.
And it doesn't become an issue. We'll probably have a policy that states that. But it'd be more just so that if it comes up, there's an avenue for us to deal with it.
Yep.
As far as lengthwise goes, I would guess that it would be just whatever their storefront length is. That's
Sure.
the maximum.
Do you think we'd get much pushback if we were to close the streets?
Yes.
Yes and no. Some do and some don't. It's like the tents themselves, it's very hit or miss. Depends on the store owner.
Well, typically, they're talking about Crazy Days. I don't know if you've ever been in town for that.
No.
Typically, there's wherever you could park on the streets, there's tents. So in a sense, you're closing off parking on the streets, but they can still drive through. But you have to leave that for emergency vehicles and stuff anyway. So, closing the whole street gets to be a little bit of a.
Yeah, it comes up with every event, is the time that we try to close the streets, because every year it gets a little more popular, a little more congested.
Mhm.
So far, we haven't had that serious issue that's really forced us to look at it harder. I did reach out to the league a little bit as far as our insurance carrier, as far as is there any reason that we have to close the street and that they leave that up to the city? And I went through many other cities' policies, and some do, some don't. and-
Yeah. Well, I think between the chamber and the police department, what I've seen, they do a really good job of limiting traffic where it needs to be limited. And like you say, if it doesn't get any crazier, I think, just because I'm here for all of them, that it seems just fine.
Yeah. And there's always gonna be a few complaints. Every year we always get patrons who will stop in and
Yeah.
I almost got hit or something like
Yeah.
that, so.
I'm just wondering, without having the street parking available because there are tents there, what point does keeping it open really serve?
Emergency vehicles.
Well, they're gonna be able to go through regardless of whether the street's open or not.
That's a requirement that they keep a lane for the emergency vehicles. Right now, that was also why I included in your packet a copy of the application for the last event, which is the lighting of luminaries. And I think they state they're leaving the alleyways open.
And I think traffic flow would honestly be better if that street was closed off so everybody knew exactly which route they had to go in and out versus trying to navigate that corner or those two corners. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I guess my personal opinion is similar to yours. I'd rather see that the street is closed and parking happens outside of the area. But the other problem with that is the city doesn't have great parking around Main Street.
Right, but they don't have any when the tents are set up.
That's true. Yeah.
So I mean, you're not losing anything by closing it.
Tom, who wrote this letter? Who is this? This letter to you that gave you the recommendations?
Joe Gertz.
Yeah,
Oh, he's with the League of Minnesota Cities. He's our insurance carrier.
oh, he's our attorney. Okay.
He's our insurance carrier.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, he had some good points. I just wondered who he was.
Yeah, he recently took the place. There was a different gentleman who retired last year. So my first correspondence with him, but yeah, I mean, the league is who we go to because they deal with everybody and see a lot of the situations.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find, and I pointed that out in my memo, that I couldn't find any communities in Minnesota who strictly enforce tent regulations as far as size goes. A lot of them, or a few of them, I should say, will require actually engineering of a large tent, for ballast and that kind of thing.
What, if anything, are we going to do as far as driving stakes into the street?
Well, that was my question for you, you gentlemen, is do we want to even pursue preventing stakes from being driven into the street to begin with? My personal feeling is I'd like to prevent that. I think it's if you came to any one of us, if we had a paved driveway and said, I want to park, if say your father-in-law came and said, I'm going to park my car in your driveway this weekend and I'm going to drive some stakes in it so I can put up a tent so my car doesn't get rained on, you'd have a fit.
Yeah.
And I think most of the business owners, the same thing. If they have a paved driveway and you wanted to drive stakes into their new driveway, they'd have a fit. Main Street cost us $500,000 to resurface in 2015. The longer we can keep that in good shape, it's to our
Who's
benefit.
driving stakes on Main Street?
Well,
Tent rental companies.
Really?
It seems,
Bill's Drive.
I think they go down up to 3 feet.
On Main Street?
Yeah.
You're not talking about the big tents they put up. Yeah, well, you can't, they fill those holes back in.
They do, but before the meeting, Galen asked me that question too, and ideally that works. But, you know, if they're at all lax about doing it, it opens up a, you know, a hole into the envelope, you know, the asphalt seals the road. And so every time you open up that hole, there's at least a potential for water to get underneath there. So if you're putting up this tent 20 years in a row, chances are eventually you're gonna have a hole that goes in underneath the pavement. And in that area, at some point, you're gonna bust up the pavement.
I think looking at the city streets, that's the least of the worries on those streets. There's so many cracks and that, to me, I walked out there the other day that you can't even tell where there was a hole. You can't tell where there's a dip. You can't, if you didn't know there was a tent there, you wouldn't know there was a tent there. But if you look anywhere on the street, there's a lot worse shape than putting up a tent. And I think when you, I don't know how many of you guys have ever been to these events, but like I say, I have been to them every one for 20 years. And there's certain times and certain things that is a necessity to have some of these events. You know, putting that huge tent up, I think that's only once a year. I think that's just the barbecue one, I think the Fall Fest.
So I guess what I'm asking this committee to do is to consider that. And is this worth pursuing any further? Now, I had mentioned in my pack that I couldn't find anybody that regulates tent
Yeah.
stakes. There are versions of tents that can be put up with weights, and it's called a frame style tent. They may not be able to be as big. The rental companies around here may not have that style of tent, I don't know, but at least in theory, in this, well, I shouldn't say theory, in practice, anytime you damage the surface of the road, you offer up the opportunity for the road to fail sooner. Now, that might be, you know, if the road was gonna last 40 years, it might mean it fails in year 39 instead of year 40. And that's just a risk that this committee has to weigh. Is it worth allowing the tents for that little bit of life shortening that might do? There's other methods too that have been developed, because anytime you open up that road surface and patch it, it shortens the life of the pavement, and that's why we bore in water lines and other things where we can to try to avoid breaking up that paved surface. So
I guess I'd like to hear from Joe. What are your thoughts from an engineering standpoint about stakes in the road?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is deposit. You mentioned that sometimes they don't fill them. As far as the longevity of the road, yeah, every time you do punch a hole in there, you disturb that soil below. And then every time it gets moisture and doesn't, you know, especially if it doesn't dry out all the way, when they cap it, then that'll freeze in the winter, pop it. That just works its way, you know, over time. Makes that crack. You don't see it the first year, the next year it's a little bigger. Pretty soon it's popping out, and then, you know, and you got a little hole there. Doesn't want to really fix. And patching after a while, you know, you put it in there and it just ravels out after a while. It's not a permanent solution usually patching. It's for like crack and sealing and stuff like that you want to really hold that to. You do major patching, generally you do an overlay after you do it, or a mill. So you should just leave it, you know, like every year continuously. I know it's just a little hole, you know, and how many tents? 10.
it depends on the year and event, it changes. Like
Every tent's got what?
8,
4 to 8
probably,
stakes.
yeah, I'm gonna say 8 stakes to them. You know, I've thought about too is some kind of a weight system, you know, you know, the old tetherball, you know, you had the.
There are tents like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, yet they bring them out and they lay them there and they got a hook in them, it's concrete tire down hook. you know, how convenient is that? How much hassle is that? Where do you storm in the winter? I mean, that's a whole nother story there.
Tom, is there anybody around this area that has knowledge about different types of tents and so on? You know, I
There,
know that a lot of tents are put up with weights. They don't use stakes.
it's rental companies that drive it. And so I think the company here is Party World. I haven't personally talked to them. Pam from the chamber has, and they don't want to put up tents without the stakes.
No, I was thinking too, is if this is a area that's defined and that they're gonna hook up, use the same hook, you know, I mean, they're ropes, so you can adjust to where the hook is if you got the temp switch, but you know, I was thinking about, well, you know, like a gate valve, you pop it up, the hook's in there, put it back down, so then you have, you know, 45, 50 little covers out there. And those are gonna, you look at gate valves when you go by, you'll see they crack all the way around. So anything that you take away that surface, you just introduce it.
You could put up, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You could put up permanent places maybe for that large tent. You know, if that's there every year, which I think it is pretty much, you know, you could put up something that's almost permanent in the paving where they could hook up their tent. But if you do it for every tent that's around, you know, that's almost impossible, like Joe said.
Yeah, I thought about that, but you know, even like manholes, they move.
That's true.
And eventually we hit them.
About the time it's size for a tent, why? The tent
That
will
gate
get
valve's
bigger or
the
smaller.
nightmare of a flower.
But
Yeah.
I think the short answer is for this committee is it enough of a concern for us to do anything about? And if you feel it is, then we pursue a policy on it. If not, we just accept that as a cost of ownership of our main street, that it's probably not gonna last as long as other streets where we don't drive stakes into it.
Are they patching them?
They pour cold patch, into them is what it is, so.
I mean, you think about it over a period of 40 years, if each tent has 8 stakes, it's 320 holes for each tent that's out there. You're talking thousands and thousands of holes
Well,
into,
no, they don't,
into a 500-foot long stretch of street.
they're not driving that kind of stakes. The big tent is it's on Nisswa property, but it's not on the street. How many stakes actually get driven along Main Street?
I don't have a count.
Yeah,
don't
I don't, I think there's one place that I know did it last year, but that's the only one I know of that actually puts small stakes in the road, and they use smaller ones, but
Well, I think that's something that we should take a look at, maybe as it comes closer to those festivals this year, see what's out there. And this is something that we don't have to do right now. I think gathering more information about it would be pertinent.
Tom, is there any limit to how far they can put those tents from the curb, you know, out in the traffic? Because, you know, I go through there almost every year when they have this, you know, my car. And so far, nobody's gotten killed that I know of or hurt. But, you know, all it takes is one. And they keep moving these tents further and further out in the traffic lane.
Yeah.
And is there any limit as to how far out they can go? That'd be something I think that would be practical.
So that was one of the questions I had for this committee. My recommendation is Cam and I were talking about this briefly before the meeting, that, you know, how the diagonals are for parking, that wherever that striping ends, that's the limit for the tent. You can't go past that.
basically a tent taking up where a car would be and no more.
But then you'd have the people beyond that.
Well, maybe at that point, leave the sidewalk open.
You know, those people aren't looking for traffic, you know, they're looking at clothes and all that stuff. They're completely oblivious to traffic.
So that was the conversation the insurance agent and I had. And so what he said is, you know, if this is your tent and your sidewalk is here, either the sidewalk has to be clear or you have to allow, you know, a similar space on the road side of the tent for pedestrians. Clear, you know, you can't have baskets or other things in that walking path, because that does force people out into the driving lane. Now, if this tent is right up against the driving lane and the sidewalk's clear and people still go out there, I don't know how you stop that. That's kind of the nature of this Crazy Days thing, and that's why every year we talk about, should we close the street? Because every year there's near misses, we get people that come in and complain, and
Well, just the nature of those tents and the way that the vendors want to set up their product, they want as much visible walking space around all their product that they can get. If everybody's funneled down to one walking lane, they can only display a very small amount of product, but if you have walking all the way around your tent, they can display more, which is gonna force people further out on the road.
what I had hoped to do is to have, depending on how our discussion went tonight, is to actually just come up with a drawing, showing the sidewalk, showing the parking areas, and showing the street. And just drawing a rectangle on a typical property, showing the dimensions of what a tent could be, that it either has to allow the tent to, the 6-foot sidewalk here, or 6-foot walking distance here, or they can have it on both sides. But they can't block walking on both.
Tom, would it be, I think they're, if I'm not mistaken, they're doing it this on Friday. But being Main Street is so wide, could we do something like leave the lanes open, but similar to what is gonna happen where they put the barricades up? Because it is so wide, there's almost like 2 lanes of traffic that you could fit on there, but leave the room that 1 lane of traffic and barricade that, so really nobody's gonna try to walk across the street except for in designated spots.
Potentially, yeah.
It is, when I pull out of a parking lot there, I can park there and wait for cars to go by, and there's plenty of room, it's such a wide. So however a legal wide path is, we leave that on each side of the center and just rope that towards the buildings off.
We've even, the staff here, we've even talked about getting these jersey barriers that are filled with water.
Yep.
And so, if this is your tent and this is your driving lane, that at the edge of the tents, we could place a line of these jersey barriers, give a break, like you say,
Yeah,
where
yep.
where they can walk across.
Yep.
And that way they have to be on the inside of the jersey barriers. That won't be perfect, there will always be people who ignore that, but
Yeah.
then it's,
But at least if you have that up where they're not supposed to do it, like there's people will run a stop sign too. But
Yeah.
at least if you put the stop sign there, it's on them. If you go through a stop sign and hit somebody, well,
yeah, currently we don't have enough barricades to
Yeah.
run the length of the main
well,
street.
like this weekend, what we do is put the dock posts up and then we put the red tape or the tape between dock posts,
Sure.
and
And that's fine with me,
something like
for
that.
now.
Yeah.
I think we're just trying to reach a more permanent solution. We're even talking about when and if Main Street is redone again, redesigning the downtown, how
Yeah.
can we make it easier to close off
Yeah.
that space? And still allow traffic to be around? Where could we offer more parking to offset the parking that
Yeah.
Where's the, how long is this event?
it's a
Which one?
weekend?
There's several of them actually, but
Yeah, the main event that caused this discussion is Crazy Days, and it's one weekend.
Yeah, then what was the negative to closing?
The business owners downtown
Yeah.
don't want,
Yeah,
because they usually don't use all of their parking spots. So let's say they have 4 spots in front of their business, they might block 2.
they want people to still
And-
be able to drive up.
Exactly, yeah. Or at least be able to drive up to their tent and get, maybe dad lets mom out to shop and he circles through, and so she doesn't have to walk.
Joe, would there be enough ballast in those water jersey barriers to tie a tent to?
Oh, you're saying set them up. That's kind of that whole idea of using the tire thing, I don't-
These guys won't do that. Their insurance company will not let them use weight. The party time. They at this time have nothing that they can use weight on. And the amount of weight that they would need to hold a tent down that size what was that, 100 by 60? They can't.
And why is that? It's because of insurance or something?
Yes.
Or because it would blow over if
Yeah.
there's bad wind or something?
Yep. Yeah, the only way that they will put a tent up that size is with stakes.
Mhm.
What's
Now,
the
would that be-
What's the pole capacity of the stake?
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
all you gotta counter the weight with, the
Yeah.
same thing. So I mean, it would be exactly the same.
Yeah, I just know that they don't use weight.
Who
Well-
is that? Who is
Probably
that?
was a
And
significant
imagine
more
a
expensive.
winter festival that you're trying to fill barrels up with water.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the fall fest typically isn't
Oh,
freezing,
yeah.
but
So I went on the website of all the tent manufacturers that I could. And the only ones that they recommended be counterweighted were these frame style tents.
The what?
Frame style, most of the ones you see with the ropes coming off them are not that. And most of the tent manufacturers want to tie them down with stakes for whatever reason. But we have seen examples of tents that are weighted. The equipment show in St. Cloud that we go to every year, they use I believe a frame style tent that's weighted down with water barrels. So it can be done. This particular company, their insurance may not allow it. That's probably true.
You know, the size, I haven't been to all of the, all those festivals or whatever. So I haven't seen all the different sizes of the tents. But when you're saying that the really large tent, they would never do that. Is that my image when we're talking about this is just these little tents along the main road, right, along the main highway. That are we going to actually stake those, allow the stakes go into the concrete for those or not? And it seems to me that the weights would work fine for the small ones.
I don't, they're putting them up personally, so.
Those are the ones that I was talking about, not the real.
Yeah,
Well, out at the racetrack, we put up a 10 by 20 and I use weights and I've never had a problem. You know,
Right.
they're not that big where you're gonna get so much wind, and for like a 10 by 20, like these guys are using, I think weights are fine. There's just not enough there to really do anything.
but it
Chances are
sounds like there's a really large one though that's being used. That would probably be,
That's the main tent that they use and that's 100 feet long by 40 or 50 feet wide.
and where is that typically put?
This year it was right out in front of City Hall here, right out in front of the pickle.
Oh, okay. So, this is where it just sounds like there's those two questions that you're asking. Should we have a limit on the size, of tents, first of all? If they're getting bigger and bigger, now I'm thinking again of those little ones on the main street. And then where should they be located? Should they be allowed to go out further? So that's the first question. For the big one, for the 100-footer, that's a whole different animal. So it would seem to me it'd be good to pursue this and talk about how much, what should the policy be for anything that's really big like that versus then these other ones that I'm sort of thinking of on Main Street. And then that's the first question. And it would seem to me that it'd be good to pursue that for the future because we're getting busier and busier, it sounds like. More and more people are coming.
I think they rent it.
But I mean, that's not done by a private business. Is that done by the city for the big tent?
I don't believe it's a city. I think
The big tent?
Yeah.
No, that's a chamber.
What's that chamber? Okay.
And so then the second question is about, the stakes. And you mentioned also the sprinkler systems. They don't go down that deep, do they? The stakes?
Yeah, we've, in years past, not this year, in years past, we've had events where they put up tents in the grass. And most of our mowed areas are sprinkled. And every year we end up.
Have to fix them. Okay, so those are and so we should be putting that together. And I think just talking about it here is not going to really solve anything. But if you can come up with, here's the proposal of what we'd like to do for a policy. It sounds to me like we do need to have a policy.
And stakes on grass, I don't like.
Mhm.
I've personally seen it like out at the track. Many power lines have got hit by stakes out there. Like they don't let you put stakes in grass out there at all.
Right.
In grass, like you say, that's where you have it's sprinklers and stuff, so grass is a little bit scary.
It comes and goes, because
Yeah.
staff here comes and goes, chamber directors come and go, the events change
Yeah.
over the years, and so we were trying to make a policy that fit all the known events we've had.
So I'm wondering if we could, if you could put something like that together to bring it to us here and then we can look through that.
Sure, because I think these extra large tents, I think there should be a permit that they get for that, so they tell us what their staking plan is. And then the council can approve it.
Yep.
As part of the application, just like you had the application for the lighting of the luminaries,
Mhm.
at least then you're aware of it. It might,
Yep.
I
So that sounds good, like anything of a certain size or larger, you say, do what you're saying. But I would make that policy, because I think we're all in agreement, we don't want to wreck the the main street downtown. But we're talking about big tents versus little tents and all these others. So I think if you put it down in a nice policy setting, then we can actually look at that and make a better decision on that, I think.
yeah.
Put down what you think is good.
Well, that was the other thing I had mentioned, I think in my memo. I couldn't find a city that had a policy for us to mimic.
Mhm. So maybe we could just go ahead and write one up ourselves, and then this is what the purpose of what we're doing and what we want to achieve, and this is how we propose it, and then you could have legal look at it if necessary. I don't know if we need to do that, but and then we can look at that here and then make that recommendation to the city council.
Fair enough, I'll draw something up for
Yeah,
our
I think
next
it's
meeting.
It's a good idea. We're getting busier and busier, more and more people. And what does concern me is that every year we get a couple of people who complain that they were almost hit. One of these days it will happen. It's just like the pyramid thing. We're still down at the bottom there where you're getting the warnings, but one of these days it's going to happen.
That's why we keep talking about if we can redo Main Street at some point again in the future, trying to find a way that it's easier to block off for these events.
Yeah. With those recommendations too, maybe a certain attendance size or more, we should have it blocked off. Certain attendance size or less, which is hard to determine maybe, but based upon the previous year or something like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
think
even know if we know what those numbers are.
Well, the main events they have here, there's a lot of people, 10,000 people. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And when you funnel 10,000 people
Yeah.
into our main street, there is a
either big
problem.
or it's little. I don't think we have a medium size.
Right.
Yeah, closest is probably the lighting of luminaries, just because it's not taking place in the summer.
Anyone looked at one way?
We talked about that, trying to somehow incorporate the alleyways. So you could have kind of like a loop setup. And that's what we were talking about, redesigning the downtown a little bit so that something like that could maybe happen.
With that extra lane of space, plus people are more apt to watch from one direction when they're crossing for the almost.
That doesn't, but the only thing is it doesn't address the parking.
They can come in and park.
Even with the one way.
Doesn't mean you can't park. right?
Oh, sure. If you're gonna allow traffic still on Main Street,
That's what I meant, a one-way rate, that instead of having two, is it two-way now?
yeah.
Yeah, so instead of having that, is there a way to do it one-way? So that would limit the lanes, okay, so that more width for the road. And then plus, people sight are looking for one direction coming, which makes it a little bit safer than the dual missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are now a golf cart town. So we might be able to allow those through, but maybe not the car with big amounts of, 10,000 people coming in. And that high density in such a small space, if they're truly, for the small tents anyway, putting stakes down, that's a high density area. And that worries me. But I think we're all talking in the same way. It's just that we might have an image of the really large tent versus me with a small tent. So put what you think is reasonable together, especially for safety. I think safety is number one, first of all. And then second of all is not to have the damage, to the streets.
Yeah, I'll figure something out, I guess.
Thank you. So is that, anybody else have anything about that? Want to say? Okay, then, if it's all right, I'm going to move on from number 3 to number 4, the recycling project update, and set date for a public information meeting.
All right. So I had a memo on this as well, and so basically, the update that's happened since last time we talked about this is I found out that the county doesn't intend to help us with the construction costs of the site at all. So we're going it alone
That's rude.
unless somebody here has special friends with the county commissioners and or cares to write a letter trying to get them to extend some money for that.
Did they ever express interest in doing it before?
They did help us when we built this site over here. So it has happened. They never said no until recently that they wouldn't help. So, but now the answer is go alone on construction. Excuse me.
And what is the reason that we're moving sites?
Mostly capacity. We're running out of room for containers and the frequency with which the hauler has to empty the containers, especially at peak times. It forces him to be here on Sundays and on holidays, and
There was something to do with traffic around the fire department too, and safety.
that too,
Yeah.
the fire chief would like to see it moved out of there. For that reason, there's, I've seen it myself when I've been back there plowing snow. People come in there to recycle don't think they need to make space for emergency vehicles. They think their recycling is the priority. So,
And if currently we pay half anyway, right?
we pay half for the operation of the facility, yes,
Okay. And then the county pays for the other half of that.
correct. So that would be my next point. Is the county wants us to participate in their RFP for a hauler. And so there's a good chance we may not be able to keep the hauler that we've had very good luck with since we moved the site over here. Waste Partners out of Pine River has been our hauler for a number of years now, and they've been fantastic.
So the county wants to be able to get bids from various haulers, and they want us to use their, whatever hauler they choose.
Right.
Yet they have not requested that up till now.
They've hinted at it, but now they're saying that they will not, if we don't use the hauler from the RFP, then they will not
Okay.
reimburse us or if we have any costs.
And the reason why we're talking about all this is not only capacity, because they don't want to have to pay for the site anymore, right? They just wanted to reduce down to 1 or 2 sites in Crow Wing or something.
So that was their original intention. I think they're fine with us having a site. They just don't want to participate in the cost of establishing it or moving it.
Okay, so, but for next year, they'll pay for half. We don't know about 2023.
So, yeah, so the paying is strictly for the maintenance of the site with the hauler. That's what that money
Mhm.
covers. It doesn't cover the construction or the establishment of the fence or the repair of the fence or
Right.
anything like that. It's just for the hauling.
So we're moving it because of safety and because of not enough space right now up there.
Yeah, there are other reasons too.
Yeah, for,
Everybody in the area uses that north of here,
right. Mhm.
like from Walker and who knows where. It's
Right.
it's very handy to do it now. And of course, that has 2 sides to it too. If you don't have a place for them to dump it, they'll dump it in the ditch.
Mhm.
So, it isn't all black and white,
right.
but
And that's the
there are a
reason.
lot of people that use that don't, don't live here.
Right. And that's the reason why we want to continue it as well, because we don't want to dump in a ditch,
Right.
yet we do want some place.
Will it
So,
still be like that out there where anybody can come in and use it?
So that's one of the things we need to talk about. If we don't get, the county does want to maintain it as as an open access site. So if we receive funds from the county for the hauler, then their requirement to get that money is that the site remain open to anyone who wants to use it. I think we would probably still do that, but we may charge a fee. So in the absence of county funds, my question was, should we be charging an access fee? We
that
could-
was the original intent.
It was because, we're gonna have an expense just to build this thing. And the only reason we would forego those fees, in my opinion, is the county not allowing it. But, if it's a site that we're going it alone, I think we have to charge something for access. Maybe it's just a flat fee on everyone's property tax. And then if you're here from out of the area, you'd have to come and maybe get a pass from the clerk to access the site. We had plans of having a gate on there so that we can close the site for maintenance, or in case of fees that we could, have that access controlled.
So if you lived in the city and if it was, say it was on property tax, you would get a code to get into the gate, or how would you access that as somebody who's paying for it?
We would probably have a code of some kind.
Okay,
Currently, we have an electronic gate on our sewer facility. It would be something similar to that, or we may man the gate. We don't know yet. So
so it have just certain hours and,
it would likely be certain hours. I think that should likely happen anyway. I don't know that anybody has a need to be recycling at midnight. But, we might have a 6-day-a-week access.
sure.
Tom, has anybody from the city, the mayor or whoever, done anything as far as contacting the county and telling them, this is kind of a unique area and, we're doing a service to the area and, why not help us?
So the staff so it's been at a staff level at this point. We haven't involved the county commissioners to the best of my knowledge. I don't think the mayor's really reached out to the county commissioners or anything like that yet.
I think they should.
I think it'd be a good idea for them to do that too.
I think we hold a certain amount of leverage there. Being that we're one of the few areas in the county that will accept people outside of their city. If the county doesn't want it on the side of their roads, I think they're gonna have to pony up. Or we close it off to
I
people
agree.
outside of the
I
city.
agree.
So if the county comes in and pays for it, then we leave it open access. If not, then we pay
That's
to,
it.
pay to enter.
So whenever this has come up in the past, there's always been a very strong opinion that the city maintain a site, even at our own expense. That's been the feeling of people involved with this, is that they want the city to have a site. That's why we're one of the few communities that still have their own site. But
Well, if that's the case, couldn't we block off our current site and just make it only open to people in our local community? Then we wouldn't have a congestion problem. We wouldn't have a whole bunch of people parking in front of the
we
emergency
can't
vehicle areas.
gate that street because of the fire department.
What's the yearly fee that the county pays?
So they pay $35,000. We pay $35,000 for the hauling.
And that's
that-
just for the hauler?
Yeah, so that fluctuates based on the commodity price. For the last few years, recycling commodities haven't had a lot of value to them, especially like the plastics and that kind of thing. Commodity prices have improved, so the cost may go down some, depending on how their RFP goes. There's competition now for that service. But what makes this site successful is the level of service we get. Cleaning up after people is the main thing. You know, they'll throw their stuff out alongside the bins, and so somebody's got to go clean that up. Well, up till now, our hauler's been very good about taking care of that for us. And our previous hauler did not. And so there's been also a strong push to try to keep our current hauler Waste Partners as long as we can. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, they're great. There's a noticeable difference on how often they get dumped and stuff compared to the old guys.
There's a definite ownership with them, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure we would get that out of the companies that are looking to get the county's business.
One of the nice things about having it out there and having it controlled, made with some cameras, is we used to have the metal container, which was so nice, but it got so abused because anybody could come in whenever and just throw whatever in there. It would be nice to have that back.
So one of the others, there are some other services that we would have out at that site too, that we want to keep it going. You know, we collect trees and brush and that kind of thing. We'll never be able to do that up here.
Right.
So this would consolidate all of that type of activity in one spot near our maintenance facility where all the equipment is stored, where the guys work out of. It'd be much easier for them to deal with if it's in that area.
Couldn't we put that in as part of the agreement, or for when we put it out for request for proposal, that they have to clean up after they pick up, if there are any bags or anything that's outside, they have to pick that up? I don't see any reason why that couldn't be put into a contract. That way we ensure that we have the same.
So the county's writing the contract. That's the thing. The RFP is coming from the county. We don't control the RFP. And one thing that would probably be different is with Waste Partners, if we notice the site gets full or there's a problem, we've got a contact we can call. We may not have that flexibility if it's being operated by the county.
Now, Tom, I remember when we talked with the hauler, Pine River, they mentioned that the amount, you know, everybody puts in a $3 per bag supposedly as an honor system. And that it actually is working very well. It actually pays for their work,
Mhm.
right? So, but yet we're still paying 35,000 and county's paying 35,000 for the hauler. Why is that? If they're getting a lot of money from that?
So what they're getting the money for is to have an actual trash dump, you know, not non-recyclables.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people that are here for the weekend generate a bag of trash camping somewhere. You need some place to get rid of it. That's where it goes, and they're on
Okay.
their honor to pay $3. But
Not
now
for
there's-
the other recyclable
so
side.
the other recyclables, say like the plastics and things, especially in the last few years, have not had any value. So it's costing the hauler to get rid of that material. And so that's what you're paying for, is that service to get rid of a material. In a way, we're wish cycling. You know, it's a material that doesn't always have value, and, you know, but it's impossible to start and stop a program like recycling. You're trying to encourage a behavior in people to do it.
Mhm.
And, you know, if we said, no, plastic prices aren't worth anything, so throw your plastic in the garbage, you'd break that training, I guess.
You
So,
You mentioned also putting it like a tax on the property. Now, a lot of people here do have the hauler come to them. You know, they bring out their trash and they take it. I would imagine a lot of people would not like it if we did that.
so that's just a suggestion. It's not how we would do it. You know, we
Yeah.
could have it simply a pass for everybody, you know, whether you're local or not. Maybe there's a local rate and a
Right.
visitor rate. I'm just throwing out some ideas for how
Yeah.
you might charge for that.
Okay.
Where's the new facility located?
So if everybody's familiar with where the sewer ponds are at.
Yep.
It's right near there, right next door.
you foresee there being less usage from people out of town because they don't want to go out of their way to go there versus here it's.
You know, people seek it out. When we had the same arguments when it was in the pickle parking lot. When I started here, the recycling was right in that open area where we stacked the snow. Well, so all we did is move it to the fire hall, but people came here, where's the recycling? And they find it. You know, we have people driving here from 50 lakes to use our recycling. We have people coming here from, you know, Pequot Lakes and to the east of us. So I don't know that it would drop that much. And it's not something we're making money on. So if it drops off a little bit, you know, so be it. I think eventually people would find it again. The other thing to keep in mind too is we're probably going to be building a backage road that makes accessing the site much easier too. So I think once that's in place, they might actually find it more convenient because it's gonna be a straight shot, not a curvy road to get to. They don't have to pass through some of the events that may be going on downtown. It's strictly a commercial area for the most part, especially where that backage road is located. It can be accessed right off the stoplights on 77. I think in the end, it'll be a better site. And as far as trucking, you know, the hauler getting to and from it, I think he'll find that much more convenient once we get that.
Yeah, I
road
do
out.
too. I think it's gonna be great out there.
So,
How much extra space is out there?
oh, quite a bit. Yeah.
It's gonna be big.
I think we can, the plan that we're showing nearly triples the amount of area we have for the recycling.
So you come in here on a, you know, like a Sunday afternoon when everybody's leaving.
Yep.
Not only do you have to, well, they'll just kind of put, you can, about 3 cars and that's it. And you gotta wait for them to move and, you know, it's kind of, shouldn't say congested, but it gets a little congested in there where that one out there is got so much room. I think it'll just be easier and
It just seems like that there's better uses for that space.
Yep.
You know, maybe we want to do something with the park, maybe we want to do something with the fire department. I think it would be better.
Okay, we've sort of been discussing this. Is there something that you want us to do on this?
So at this point, I really didn't want you to do anything. The main thing I wanted to do was to let you know the county's opinion on the site. The one, that they weren't going to pay for the construction, and 2, they likely are going to change our hauler. And so that you were aware of that, because I wanted to set at our January meeting, I want to have a public meeting where we actually put notices out more formally to the public. So if anybody has any concerns or issues with the concept drawing for the recycling, that's their time to render an opinion. What I'm hoping is that at that January meeting, you guys are all pretty familiar with it. As long as nothing changes, I'll have whatever final update on the county's position at that time. And we'll make a recommendation to the city council whether or not to go to actual engineering of a site. What we have is a concept drawing. So the next step would be engineering that for construction.
Do we have
And-
any idea what a cost might be to go over there?
I did have a cost estimate. Unfortunately, I don't have that in front of me, but
It wasn't high.
no, it wasn't bad. I thought it was reasonable. I don't remember what it was.
200.
yeah, I guess I don't, it wasn't.
$200 is wonderful.
I won't speculate what the cost is, but it was,
No, I'm not gonna either now, 'cause I can't remember.
I want to say it was like 3
Yeah,
something,
I
but
just think it was around that number. Don't let that out. because it's a roll.
Yeah.
but
And
it's
and
only,
that's the other idea of doing the engineering, preliminary report, or at that point, to make it construct that, to get a closer
Yeah,
cost. for it.
yeah.
the idea is to get it ready for construction probably as early as next fall or as late as the next summer.
So in order to bring this to the council then, or you're talking about December,
January,
January,
at our
The meeting.
regular meeting.
and then have the public meeting on January 26th type period?
Yeah, I believe that is our regular meeting. date.
Right, that'd be a regular meeting. From there, so to do that, we'd need to get some idea of what the costs might be. And then the proposal,
Yes.
and you'd want to do that here first?
So
And then
what
the
we'll do is,
recommendation?
I just wanted to bring up the changes, which we talked about. We've already talked about the costs
Mhm.
and the concept in our June meeting here. So I just wanted to refamiliarize you with those terms. I apologize, I didn't bring the costs. I didn't think to do that.
Mhm.
But at the January meeting, I will go through the concept again. I'll go through the cost estimate. And then we'll open it up for any public comment on the proposal.
Mhm.
And once that's done, I will ask you to make a motion or a recommendation to the city council, whether to go ahead with the project or not.
Mhm.
And that's where it'll begin.
Now, then I guess the first question would be, why are we even talking about this? Why not just keep it the way it is? You know, that's what everyone want to say, first of all. And so that really is because the whole discussion I remember was the county's not going to pay for anything anymore. Was that not true?
Yeah.
I know they're going to do it for 2022.
Yeah, so they're gonna, it sounds like they're paying 50% will continue as long as we keep their hauler. That's the difference. So, you know.
From now on, that's what they're going to be saying.
Yeah, so a year ago, they were going back and forth on whether or not they were gonna continue to pay, no matter who the hauler was. They wanted to, you were right when you said that they wanted to eliminate this this site altogether. They wanted to either get you to go out to the landfill site, or they have one other one. I can't remember exactly where that was, but so they wanted to get it down to 2 sites
Mhm.
at that time.
But now they've changed. Now they say, sure, we'll keep paying as long as you use our hauler.
Exactly.
Well, I still think we have leverage. If they want us to take people outside of the city of Nisswa, I think we should tell them that they have to write into the contract with whatever hauler they're gonna use, that they have to maintain the site as in a certain condition. Otherwise, we close doors to people outside the city of Nisswa.
Yeah, and I think that's an argument that has to come from the city administrator, the city mayor.
Mhm.
But I think it's important that they do that.
You know, they need to write a letter with
Yeah.
what their expectations are. And, you know, certainly you could make that recommendation from here if you'd like. That they do that.
So it would be nice in a way if we could just keep it there and just use the hauler, have them put their, RFP? Have them write the contract with that they have to clean it up, you know, and we do that with our mayor or whoever can do that. And then to have that included and then just keep it where it is, you know, that's one option. But then they would have their hauler, but it's with that contract that they have to clean it up. But then there's other reasons too, you know, why we want to move it. And I think that needs to be very clear. If we can make those clear, then we could probably take it to the city council later on.
Yeah, and I think we have made it clear, you know, we've talked about the safety. I had a memo at that June meeting, then I outlined the
Mhm.
reasons why we were moving it. I still have that memo, and
Right.
we could add to it if we need to.
I have a feeling a lot of people might think, oh, safety, that's a squishy thing. It's fine, you know, the way it is right now. You know, a lot of people will probably think that way.
Well, one thing to be aware of that I had brought to my attention probably since our last meeting from the
Mhm.
fire chief is they used to land the helicopter where the recycling center sits.
Ah,
They can't do
yes.
that with a recycling sitting
See?
there.
There's
So-
another reason. So
So-
if we can outline those.
Oh, sure. So,
Okay.
so we'll definitely talk about this again, and I will try to get more of that, maybe another memo put together that can be pushed to the council to approve.
And Waste Partners wouldn't be excluded from that RFP, would they?
No, they're not excluded, no.
So they would, there is the potential that they could still stay on. They would just have to come under
Correct.
whatever other hauler decided to get on.
The other option that I don't know, and this is what's made this interesting to the county. There was a 3-year contract for the hauling. We're only in the first year, we're coming to the end of the first year of that. But they did have a clause in there that allowed either one to escape. Well, the county's choosing to escape because one of the new haulers is offering to do the service for free. Now, is that for 1 year to get the business, or is that indefinitely? You know, nobody knows for sure. Maybe Waste Partners will match that, but that, you know, so there's some games I think being played there. I don't know. But either way, I think it's important for this committee and the city to consider how important is it to stay in step with the county, or is there a way for us to go it alone?
Well, as long as they can make it apples to apples with the RFP, that, and our apple is that we need to have it cleaned up. And as long as that's in there, whoever comes in, and if they say they'll do it for free,
Yeah,
you know,
good luck to them.
yeah, but it'd be good to hear the facts of what they're coming up with anyway.
Yeah, like I said, we weren't involved in writing the RFP,
Yeah,
and we haven't been asked about what should be in the RFP or given an opportunity to put into the RFP. So,
That's another point, Tom. You know, you should have that opportunity, the city.
Yeah.
If we're paying for half of it or whatever,
We should
we
have a
should
say.
be able to, you know, the board just sits there and makes all those rules,
yeah.
you know.
What they're saying is it's likely gonna be nothing, you know, so. They're saying they're paying half of our cost,
Yeah,
but you know, it's like you say, it's how you're what side are you looking at it from?
yeah.
We're doing them a favor as well, though.
Sure.
Cleaning up
You
our
know, I think there's
facilities.
gotta be some give and take
Yeah.
There does.
instead of just everything
Yeah,
being what they say.
Padlock,
what's that?
put a padlock on.
Right, yeah, that is an option, is the city to just say no recycling, you know, city of Nisswa residents, contract for recycling with your hauler, and if it's not available, take it to the landfill of the county.
That's the leverage
Take it to
that
the
the
new
city
contract.
has, yeah.
Exactly.
So-
Go ahead and drive into Brink.
So anyway, that's what we'll do. So unless anybody has a problem with that public information meeting in January and making a recommendation at that time, that's all there is for this topic.
okay. Any other comments or questions on this topic? Then we'll go ahead and move on to number 5 here, which is engineering updates outside of agenda items. Anything, Joe?
Well, I don't have a lot going on, but
Good.
actually, we've finalized position number 3. Now, sanitary sewer study, station number 12 is for the most part done. We'll be presenting that probably December, maybe.
Mhm.
Think I'd have to follow up with Jenny. I'm not
I know
sure.
that we got kind of scheduled there. Then, a water study that's in progress, that we're doing right now, the roundabout, try to get a kickoff meeting for that in December.
Is that the roundabout down near Wendy's there?
No, the roundabout at, Grandview entrance.
Oh, that's right, that's right. A little further down.
And that's gonna be more of an informal thing, just to find out, the first step there is to figure out what kind of footprint we're gonna have, how much land. Roundabouts take more than the normal right away that you have at the corner. And then, the trail project is kind of moving forward, ongoing. Just stop for a little while, with the funding, we're back on that.
Is that money available now? Is that money available for
I
sure?
think we're good for what's happening.
What are you looking at for construction time?
Well, we're really trying to shoot for, next year, but it could be like it could go into 23. Only because of the delay, and, we just picked up now, where we stopped back in July.
You actually working on the plans and specs then?
We're working on the preliminary, design, that's 30% design. So we'll have an estimate for that, 30% denied. So we'll put that out on the table, have the county look at it and the city and see if there's any adjustments we need to make. And then we'll probably just go right into construction documents after that.
Is the county involved in that?
Well, it's we're in there right away, down 77.
Yeah.
So they're involved, yeah, it's a county state highway, so.
On the-
Both counties actually, Cass County for Lake Shore, part of it, and then for, the Nisswa side would be Crowley County, so it's kind of a dual. They have a lot of influence on where the trail can be placed in the right of way because of clear zone, for, recovery zone. So we're trying to work through that.
When are you thinking construction will start on that roundabout?
What we propose and what we're gonna try to shoot for will be a design this year and then bid it out in probably late summer, early fall. And hopefully enough, bid it out enough time that we can do the utility adjustments, the clearing and grubbing and those kinds of things in the year of 2022.
Okay.
And then that'll limit the time in 2023 to do the actual construction of the roundabout. And we're hoping that if we can get done by July 4th. The weekends are critical to the Grandview. So at one point you could take away all three of their big weekends, the Memorial, Labor Day and 4th of July. We're trying to limit that to one weekend. And it might be that the roundabout will be there, cleanup work is done, but they could still operate,
Will that shut down 77 altogether when that's being installed?
there is no good fast way around.
Oh, there's not.
So it's not gonna shut it down. We'll have to keep it open. It's just the fact that there's no way to close that down.
Right.
We'd have to detour
The detour is
so
so
golf
far away.
course, come around. There would be a way to detour, but not for the kind of traffic volume you have on 77. It just wouldn't. And Lake Shore is a big contributor to the area, so we wouldn't want to, you in a sense, shut them down too. So
Right.
that's not, we'll need to keep it open.
I'd like to see a,
I suppose would be the only way from Nisswa.
I'd like to see a current traffic count on 77.
Probably about 50.
That road doesn't even have.
It is so much higher than it was even 3
Oh,
years
sure.
ago.
Yeah, that's,
And I live on it, it's just, you can't believe it now.
oh, yeah,
I mean, it's just steady traffic, even this time of year.
yeah. It's going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be extremely, not a very good close there. What's that?
And I believe we're actually getting a fair amount of money too from,
Yes, we are.
The state.
I think the grant was 900,000 and some change.
yeah.
Wow.
And with that traffic, it sounds like it's a good idea to get that in there as quickly as we can.
I think, we talked earlier about safety. That's probably an accident waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
There's golf carts that cross, there's.
Oh, yeah.
bicyclists, And in Grandview, it cuts Grandview in half, 77. So you have the golf course. There's just a lot of traffic.
Yep.
And they discussed cattle crossing at one time too, but it's not conducive to that with that like stuff. Anything else? Do you guys have any questions for me?
Are we still looking at doing a roundabout over there by Wendy's as well? And on the other side by Schaefer's?
I don't know that that's in the works or in the sites anywhere. I think the back of those are probably the main thing that are in the sites. If for some reason it worked out that a roundabout was going to be something that would be worthwhile there with the package road, that's.
The last word we had on it from the county is that plan isn't being considered.
I was just
anymore.
trying to lead you to know.
Yeah.
For the county already has the right of way to put that in.
They do, but they don't like to talk about it, so as far as we know, what we've been told is don't bring it up anymore, it's not a project.
That can change.
What would the speed be going around that roundabout by Grandview?
Well, what's the speed up to it right now? It's 50 miles an hour, I think.
Yeah. They got the yellow slow
Well,
down.
they're all roundabouts would be slowed down 50 miles an hour. You know, unless you're gonna make it straight through, unless it's have a roundabout. Yeah, that'll considerably slow it down so that, you know, traffic can go through there freely.
Is it at least gonna be a roundabout that has wide enough lanes where it's easy to pull a boat, and trailer and stuff around there? 'Cause some of those roundabouts are so bloody tight that you end up going up over the curbs and flowers and stuff.
Yeah, and not sure if you do this, but you know that there's usually an 8-foot area around the centerpiece of the roundabout
Mhm.
with mountable curb.
Yep.
For that reason. So
If
that
you
the
go
back
through
of the
this one here, you'll
semis,
see Semi tires that go up.
semi-tires, that they're made for that to happen.
No, I get that, but some roundabouts are tighter than others.
Yeah, and some roundabouts I see now too that have, don't have mountable curb there.
Right.
That makes that difficult too, so it depends on the design and circumstances, of the speed and geometrics.
I used to own a trucking company and there was a road out west of the cities. I don't remember what road it was anymore. It was one of the first in the state to have the roundabouts put in.
Where?
I think it was Highway 7. I don't remember exactly where it was going out west from the cities.
Oh.
And they made the roundabout so tight and it was on a highway. And they put flowers up all on the inside and everything. Well, within a couple of months, you no longer had a circle of flowers, you had ovals, 2 ovals, because the insides kept getting run over. It was horrible.
No, they're, in North Dakota, there's roundabouts. And, one thing I noticed there is, they put a couple up on a hill at an angle. And, yeah, well, say no more, I'll slide through those bugs. Looking right through.
Okay, any other questions for engineering? Well, then, let's go to number 6. Any committee member concerns, questions, or reports? I don't have anything, but
Oh, what day are we meeting in December? I know we changed it.
So
It's,
it's a week earlier. It's the, what's that? 22nd. So right now, as it stands, I don't have any business for the December meeting, so there's a good chance we may not have one at all. But if we do, it'll be on the 22nd.
Okay.
I will probably a week ahead of time let you know if we're not gonna have that meeting. So.
okay. If no one else has anything, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Real nice Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too.
Way it goes, huh?